Welcome back to This is VANCOLOUR. Let's shift our conversation about the economic and existential crisis that Canada faces under the threat of our American neighbors to drugs and border security. We know that within Canadian borders, illicit drugs are produced for export. So, are we truly bad neighbors posing a threat to the Americans as they claim? And will the recent appointment of a Fentanyl Czar make us better neighbors? Here to discuss, the author of Willful Blindness, How a Network of Narcos, Tycoons, and CCP Agents Infiltrated the West, an investigative journalist, and the founder of The Bureau, Sam Cooper. Sam, so nice to see you. Are you freaking out yet?
Mo, honestly, things feel very dicey now. With regards to the tariff threats and whether Canada really is a fentanyl problem to the rest of the world, I think the answer is we are a problem. And so I do think the right thing to do is something that I and others have been advocating for a while, is we need to take care of the fact that we have become a fentanyl exporter nation. We need to realize that Mexican cartels and Chinese triads have set up very strongly in Canada and especially British Columbia. And Mo, I know that we both have talked to Mayor Brad West a lot, and Mayor West knows because he's heard from the American government under the Biden administration that they have serious concerns that we have become, as Mayor West says, an industrial scale fentanyl producer and exporter. And look, Mo, in my view, that's just not Canada. So let's address that we are a real concern. And then, that should go a long way, I believe, to fixing up the problems south of the border. And if the American government still wants to be unfair with us, then we'll have to tackle that, bit by bit.
I have to admit, though, I'm a little confused because on one hand, we keep hearing that less than 1% of American fentanyl seizures occurred on the Canadian-U.S. border. But then on the other hand, as you sort of, alluded to some of the issues, the RCMP just dismantled the largest, most sophisticated drug super lab in Canadian history in Falkland, BC. And then last week, apparently, we learned that there's another investigation happening in an apparent drug lab in Spallancheen, BC. As you said, we know that Canada does produce and export illicit drugs overseas to Australia, New Zealand, and Southeast Asia. So explain to the viewers if the Americans really have a fair point about Canada being this big player in drug trafficking.
Well, I think the border seizure and the border in itself is a bit of a misdirection. Mo, I've been reporting for years. And again, as Mayor Brad West confirmed, as my police sources in the United States and Canada continue to confirm, we are a fentanyl production powerhouse, and that's a bad thing. I'll give you some data points.
Please.
You pointed to that Falkland lab, 95 million doses of fentanyl, and RCMP confirmed some of that was due to be shipped abroad. I reported in Willful Blindness about an 85-ton seizure of precursors, methamphetamine and fentanyl precursors. Mo, this was all linked to a business person that my sources indicated was working with the Chinese triads in Vancouver. Let's not forget the massive scale money laundering that underwrites that fentanyl trafficking in Canada. My latest strong estimates are hundreds of billions laundered through Vancouver, real estate and casinos. That's hundreds of billions since about 2010. Hundreds of billions in Toronto as well. This is going through our major banks. I'll give you one more data point. 1,000 kilograms of fentanyl precursors disguised as toys from China, seized in the Vancouver port in 2022. And the last point here, Mo, is we're only, as you know, our police officials in Delta have confirmed we are only searching less than 1% of the containers coming into Delta Port, the fourth largest port in North America. So it can't be denied that we are a major concern for both money laundering, production, and exporting of fentanyl. And so that 1%, whatever it was, 40 kilograms seized at the northern border, I think that's a small portion of what the United States government is concerned about in Canada.
No, that's totally fair. And I don't want to, shirk our own responsibilities, because what you're talking about is truly a national security threat to Canada itself. But ultimately, as a country, isn't it your responsibility to guard your own borders in terms of what comes into your country? Like, we know that US firearms get smuggled into Canada to catastrophic impact to our communities, but we're not telling the US to crack down on gun running. Like, aren't we responsible for the inflow of those illegal goods ourselves, just as the US would? Is it possible that Trump is using border security as an excuse to renege on existing trade agreements between our two countries?
That's possible, and I don't think that we certainly don't deserve to face 25% tariffs, and it's quite possible that Mr. Trump is being unfair. And as I've said, to some others, look, he's promised his base that essentially they're going to be able to work in factories in the Rust Belt again, that they, will not have illegal immigration coming through their borders as it has before. And he won election, and we can like that or not, and we can say that he's being unfair with us. I don't disagree with that. But what can't be denied is that about 50,000 Canadians have died. And look, if we are able to crack down on transnational organized crime, Mexican cartels, Chinese triads that are using Canada as a global base of operations, I don't see how we're going to be in a weaker position in negotiating, and I don't see how we're going to be a weaker country. We'll be stronger in both cases. But I want to stress, I don't think there's very much fair in Mr. Trump's negotiation tactics, and certainly the rhetoric he's directing at Canada.
Now, in order to show the Americans that we, Canada, are serious about border security and drug trafficking, Canada recently appointed a fentanyl czar. So walk me through the job description and the powers that the fentanyl czar will have, and who exactly has been appointed to carry out the fentanyl czar duties.
Well, first of all, a fentanyl czar will be someone, I'm not sure of what powers they will have besides convening powers. So their job will be to get US law enforcement and Canadian law enforcement together working on what's called a cross-border organized crime strike force. And Mo, look, from my research, that is something that's needed, because I've been hearing for years from both Canadian police sources and American police sources that the US Drug Enforcement Administration and the US Homeland Security Department, responsible for cracking down on fentanyl and serious organized crime, are not able to get good participation from Canadian law enforcement. In comparison, the Australian federal police and authorities work very well with the Americans. So the issue, my sources indicate, are that Canada has laws that are barring our RCMP from working well with American police. Just as an indication, it came out in the Cullen Commission into anti-money laundering that the RCMP could not even get wiretaps on known high-level Sinaloa cartel operatives operating in Vancouver. The DEA wanted to work with the RCMP, and due to our laws, rather lack of strong anti-organized crime laws, the Canadians couldn't participate. So the fentanyl czar will be about, at the very least, trying to facilitate better coordination and participation with the Americans. And Mo, I'll add, I've had Mayor Brad West on. I advocated that Mayor Brad West would have been a great fentanyl czar. He wasn't appointed, but as you know, he met with Secretary of State Antony Blinken in 2023. And as I revealed in a recent story and interview, Mayor West disclosed that Antony Blinken was concerned that Canada lacked anti-racketeering laws. Secretary of State Blinken pointed to the massive capacity that Canada has for the money laundering tools, that is real estate, front companies, and again, the lack of laws that allow money laundering and fentanyl trafficking to occur. So we have a Mr. Kevin Brosseau has been appointed as the fentanyl czar. And Mo, I've already read that Mr. Brosseau has reached out to the big Canadian banks about, intelligence sharing with our American financial counterparts and ways in which Canadian banks, which I'm saying and have written through documents, are being used at scale for billions in drug money laundering. Very obviously, the Americans are concerned, and our Fentanyl Czar, Mr. Brosseau, has started talks with the Canadian banks on what we can do to better crack down on money laundering.
So really quickly, in 30 seconds or less, will this solve fentanyl trafficking in Canada? Because you pointed to some optimism there.
There's some optimism. Again, as Mayor Brad West said, we need to change laws. We need a RICO-like act, which was used in the United States to crack down on serious organized crime. We need to be able to tackle these multi-billions in money laundering running through our banks. And as I say, hundreds of billions being laundered through our real estate. Those are major lifts. But I do think with the political will and legal changes, we can turn back the tide of this fentanyl crisis.
Sam, I appreciate your time. Thank you for all the hard work that you do at the Bureau.
Always great talking, Mo. Thanks.
Folks, thank you so much for watching. And thank you, of course, to Sam Cooper and Aaron O'Toole for tonight's show. If you have any thoughts about tonight's show, are you freaking out? Shoot me an email, mo@thisisvancolor.com. Also, delete your social media so you don't have to follow me at VanColor. We're back next week where I'll be a year older, but in the meantime, be colorful. Peace.